relevant, reliable, and researched. This is Experts on Call, the show focused on delivering leading-edge news and information on today's most beneficial products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Welcome back to the program. Our guest in studio tonight is the president of Inter-Provincial Roof Consultants. We're talking with Sean Lang, and we've been talking about, ventilation of roofs, among other things, Sean. And just before we went to the break, you had mentioned a few examples. People call you all the time with just questions. Well, these people look like they know what they're talking about. Why don't I just call those roof consultant people? Yeah. And so they call you with issues about condensation. Yeah. And I said, well, I have a window that's got a lot of that stuff going on in my house. Yeah. Where does this is all, we were talking about ventilation. Yeah. So condensation is clearly what happens when ventilation isn't adequate.
Yeah. What I've seen happen is in some complexes, I'm talking about stratas
Sure,
here,
yeah.
But it's basically the same in any building. When there's a high humidity level within that building, let's say everybody's taking long hot showers, one after another, a lot of food is being steamed, drying laundry in the building by hang drying within the building. Mm-hmm. There's actually stupid little things you can buy to put on your dryer hose that's supposed to recirculate the heat from your dryer within your building, which is essentially pumping hot moist air back into the building,
sure, yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Right.
So the way that some people live, they're creating a lot of humidity within their building. Mm-hmm. Okay, that humidity has to go somewhere, and naturally, it wants to migrate upwards.
The heat rises. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the vapor barrier of the ceiling is not perfect. And what I mean is, whenever you have a roof hatch, you've basically got an opening in your vapor barrier, mm-hmm. because it's not sealed. You have to be able to open that hatch.
Sure.
So moisture can get up through there. It's called vapor diffusion. The moisture wants to go where there's less moisture. Mm-hmm. It wants to even out. So you end up with all this humidity within the building rising up and hitting the underside of the roof deck. And if the air can't breathe and get in there and dry that out or eliminate it before it even hits the roof deck, you end up with condensation. Ah. And that condensation in the wintertime can freeze on the underside of a roof deck, or even just in the more mellow times of the year where it's not quite so cold, mm-hmm. It'll just stay moist on the underside of the roof deck, and particularly in our climate where we live in a bit of a rainforest.
Oh, no kidding.
So that moisture will then...
Very high humidity climate here.
And what you have to understand too is that there's bacteria on everything around us, particularly exterior components, that actually allow fungal growth and bacterial growth given the right circumstances. So you can walk out and that's why you go out to Stanley Park and you see all this fungus growing and mushrooms growing on the trees, and any forest is beautiful. It's all because of the right moisture conditions to let these fungus and spores grow.
Right, sure.
So within an attic, you've got wood components,
yes,
which have those spores on them.
Uh-oh.
Now,
it's pretty in the forest,
give it
not
the right,
in the attic.
Yeah, give it the right conditions, and these are going to start to grow. These spores are going to start to grow and
right.
turn into a bacteria fungus that's going to turn into what I call organic growth, but it's actually mold.
Right, right.
Okay, so...
And that's usually the consequence of just a hyper-moist,
yeah.
poorly ventilated system.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
The air can't move enough to dry it out. And what stops the mold from growing is drying out. It doesn't die, it just dries and goes dormant.
Right,
okay,
right.
So...
well, what about condensation on the windows? That was the example you used of a person who called the office and said, I've got condensation on my windows.
So I think it's a roof leak.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's not a roof leak. It's there's too much humidity within the building and it can't escape properly. Or the humidity level is not being controlled well enough. Or there's leaks around the window itself. If you have a double glazed window where the seals are broken, that the condensation is going to happen within the panes of the glass.
Uh-huh. And that's what I determined during the break is the problem with the window in my room. Probably it's an older window. It's double paned, and it's likely that the seal is broken and some moisture has found its way in there.
I mean, some people will have dehumidifiers in their home when they know that they're running a very humid home to take the moisture out of the air. And when you change the container in the dehumidifier, you can really physically see how much moisture you're actually removing. That's actually got to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't have that dehumidifier, it's going to condensate on the glass because it's colder on the outside. It wants to get there. it's something that has to be controlled, and we've seen in some roofing projects where we've changed the venting on the roof. Okay, then there's a pipe that goes from that vent down to a ceiling fan, let's say in a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Now that ceiling fan is 20 plus years old. It's weakened. It doesn't work very well.
And it's supposed to draw the moisture
yeah,
out of the...
you know, maybe if it was designed to flow 100 CFM when it was originally installed, it's now pulling maybe 60.
Okay.
Or whatever. So it's not pulling all that. Now add a very moist environment within. You're drying all your clothes inside. You're pumping that drier air back in, or you're steaming all your food, or a lot of people even live in the building. If there's a ton of people that are always in that building, there's a lot of breathing going on.
Right.
So a lot of moisture is being pumped into the building. And if these fans can't take it away fast enough, it has to go somewhere.
Right.
So one project in particular, there was actually moisture dripping out of the ceiling fan on a project that was recently re-roofed. So
and so they figured it was leaking
they
down
figured
from
the roof was leaking.
Right, right.
So we checked the roof. There's nothing wrong with the roof. We checked the pipe. There's nothing wrong with the pipe. But the fan wasn't pulling it was in a bathroom. So the fan wasn't pulling the air out fast enough, and it condensated before it could leave the building and dripped back in.
So interesting. On that particular call, the Inter-Provincial Roof Consultants, the remedy was change the fan in the bathroom,
Yeah,
and
it's
you'll
time
be
to
just
upgrade
fine.
those fans.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And that can
what
happen.
a relief to find out that that's the only problem when you thought the brand new roof was starting to leak at you already.
Well, and that's what happens with a lot of older buildings, is that as soon as you change one component, it triggers other components to show their failure.
The domino effect.
And it's no fault of, you're doing your due diligence to change your roof, but it's not the roofer's fault that now your ceiling fan's not working.
Sure.
Or the consultant's fault for not knowing that your ceiling fan was weak. We can't go and test every building component to design a roof system. We design a roof system. If other components start to fail, that's just part of owning a building.
Right. So when you get called upon, when Inter-Provincial Roof Consultants get one of those calls, when the kind you get every day, and some property manager or strata council representative says, come on over and take a look at our roof, and they really want, let's say it's a new council, and they've been looking over the paperwork and realized they've got some catching up to do. The last council wasn't particularly diligent. So, okay, let's get some pros in and have a look at where we're at. And so they get you in. How thorough can you be? Would you, for example, go through that strata building, check the roof, because that's what you do, but would you also go and check those fans in the individual suites?
No, we can't. I mean, you have to flow test them all. I mean, you basically have to, I don't know, I don't do that kind of testing.
Okay.
But those problems usually show up after the fact.
Okay.
But a person can typically tell by just the sound of their fan, how fast is it?
Yeah.
Are your mirrors in your bathroom clearing up in a reasonable amount of time?
Right.
Just how old are they? I mean, nothing lasts forever. So if you're living in a 30-year-old building and you've never changed the ceiling fans, maybe you should consider that, because it's now taking out all that air from within your building, and it has to do it efficiently.
Walk us through the process of whether it's me, the individual homeowner in the burbs, or the new president of the Strata Council on behalf of his or her building that calls you up and says, okay, come on in, you professional people. It's time to get the straight goods on where our roof is at.
Yeah, well, typically what happens is that we'll get a phone call and questions are asked about what we should do, and we will tell people, let's get us out to have a look at your roof system. We can do a condition report, which will tell you everything that you need to know about your building. And then from there, that's the fork in the road. We have to make decisions based on that report.
Right.
So if there's no prior knowledge of the building from either side, whether we know something about it or they know something about it, and quite often people will call us about a building that they just took over,
yes,
but we've got files on it already.
Oh, interesting.
Because we have files going back years and years and years.
Right, right.
And we may already know a lot about that building. Maybe we were even involved in the roof systems installation.
Okay.
10 years ago or 15 years ago. So we can actually awaken the knowledge that's been buried in the files. But, so once we've done the condition report, assuming we don't know anything about it and they don't know anything about it, depending on the results, if the results say the roof needs to be replaced and we recommend that it should be replaced right away, we would then write a specification, which is the instructions to replace the roof system, and put it out to tender to 5 reputable roofing contractors
Right.
that we feel are best suited to replace that roof system. They've got the manpower, the training, the equipment, the ability to change the roof system in a timely manner.
And all 5 of whom will bid on the exact same set of specifications and instructions.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So now when you get your prices back, not only do you know that any one of the 5 contractors is fully capable of doing the job, so any one of them is a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they've all bid on the same set of instructions. So they're not, one's not saying I'm going to put on this type of roof system and the other one's saying, well, I'm going to put on that one.
Yeah,
now, which
exactly.
one's better?
Yeah.
It's all based on the same thing.
Sure.
So you're eliminating the questions here. Now it's just down to the numbers. Which number do I like better? Well, usually the low bid.
Sure.
So you can confidently pick the low bid because you know the contractor's been basically pre-qualified.
Yes.
You know that the specification's been designed for your building. So low bid gets the job.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there was some special condition where the contractor who submitted the low bid put in submitted some form of a caveat to his quote that said, I can't do it for 6 months. And the second bidder said, but I can do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right.
Well, that might change your decision.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we do ask for that kind of criteria. There's a few things we ask for when they're submitting their bid, not just price. We want to know that they can get it done on time. We want to know how many men they're going to commit to the job, what type of equipment they're going to use to access the building. There's a few different things that we use as criteria when we're tendering a job so that the owners can actually make a wise decision when they're choosing the contractor.
The people to call when you need to know, and you need a good, solid professional backup to what knowledge you're going to be provided with. We're talking, of course, about Inter-Provincial Roof Consultants. Their website is iprc.ca. The address, the phone number, the emails, all of that contact information is right there at iprc.ca. Sean Lang, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for the educational hour. I learned a lot more than I expected to.
We'll do it again next month.
Good stuff. See you next time on Experts on Call.
Delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call. And there's more still ahead on AM 650.